How is there not like a Fazbear Fright story about that, but there's one about someone getting pregnant with Springtrap?
Let's
How?
go.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs. The Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. I'm your host with the toast, Right Toasty, with a very special guest. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm HyperDroid. I've made a new Supreme Guide video. It's huge, 24 hours long.
Yeah, you know, it's a brief guide, a bit of an entryway point for a lot of new FNAF fans. I
immediately self-promo, but...
No, we're going to be talking about it. Like, that's totally fair.
Okay.
Because typically I like to end the podcast with like, hey, what's coming up? What do you have coming up next? But like, no, it came out.
Now.
We're talking about it.
I'm resting now. I'm on like a vacation right now.
Exactly. I do want to, I'm not the one to do this because I've yapped to my partner enough that like, she knows enough about FNAF now. I hope somebody out there does a showing a like non-FNAF fan the entire Supreme Guide in one sitting video. I so want to know, like, Clockwork Orange, tape their eyelids open, strap them to a chair, they leave knowing like all of FNAF.
I feel like as soon as you see that runtime, it's very intimidating immediately before you even get into it.
That is kind of a growing trend on YouTube. I know I've kind of dipped my toe into longer videos for that, like on Ride Does, and mine are just compilations of past videos I've made. It's much more straightforward than the effort put into the Supreme Guide. But it is like it's interesting that YouTube in general is liking long videos more.
It's which is weird considering everyone talking about how everyone's got less attention spans now. But apparently people are liking it more.
Yeah, I think it might genuinely be in retaliation of that. Like, not consciously, but the idea of like, we just went through this like Vine, TikTok, Instagram Reels boom, and a lot of people are tired.
That does make sense though. We need a little detox from the short form.
Exactly. And also, I know a lot of people, myself included, like a good background video. I will say, I am at sister location gameplay mechanics. I'm a good chunk in.
Getting through it.
It's been great to edit alongside of. It's wonderful to like be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like while that's on in the background.
It's good. It's good for getting inspiration for theories and stuff.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this week's timeline, I'm still trying to establish a backlog. So it's like, is it this week or next week? One of the upcoming theories is actually on FNAF 2, and I wouldn't have been thinking about the DCI if not having just gotten through that on the Supreme Guide.
That is true, because they're just completely forgotten. But
oh yeah, like for good reason. What are they? I'm curious.
Just exist to exist.
Yeah, I think part of the theory is that it's a whole thing, and we won't get into it now because we have other stuff to talk about. But part of it was essentially that like if Fazbear is a publicly traded company, then when Freddy's is closed, William may not have access to the Freddy's animatronics, right? They might be owned and held by the shareholders in the meantime. Kind of like what we see in the newspaper for FNAF 2. So, part of the thinking was if William was not able to study possible possession post-MCI, when FNAF 2 opens up, if he's desperate enough, I think I know what'll get a reaction out of them. Let me do what I did to them in front of them and see what happens.
That's a good. Yeah, that's sure. That's a good idea.
And like, it's a sound like logical idea. Not a lot of evidence for it, but
it's a compelling idea. That's
it's just one of those things of like, why else would the DCI happen? Because it seems to have not affected anything.
Well, yeah, because they come and go in the same exact game, but
for real, like it's a matter of like if you believe that the DCI possesses the toys or not. Like either way, by the end of FNAF 2, it doesn't matter anymore because they get scrapped.
Literally never mentioned again. Like they've not been mentioned a single time.
We know at this point, I would say, in a confirmed manner, we know the names of at least 4 of the MCI victims in a confirmed, clear-cut way. Yeah, I would argue exactly. 5, but like it's inarguable 4.
Yes. But the DCI.
But the DCI, fuck, I'm like...
Nothing.
I mean, it's to a point. We say DCI. Do we know that they're kids?
That's a good point.
From what I can think, if we just have saved them, it's probably kids, but they are just like 8-bit silhouettes.
Yeah, I think it's just because the assumption that last time it was kids, so this time it might be kids.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's a completely safe assumption, assuming that William is the one who did it since he's there.
But yeah,
so I one of the things we talked about in doing this, part of this is to, hey, being super real and transparent here, part of this, I want more people to watch that goddamn Supreme Guide. It's very good. But also, to have a meaningful conversation, I know you just did a whole bunch of timeline work because of it. I'm working on a time. I feel like a lot of people right now are working on timelines. I know FNAF's like massive, huge, like animated project, whatever it is going on. I think ID's Fantasy mentioned she's like pondering a timeline in the background right now.
Everyone's working on a timeline.
First it was Golden Freddy, and now we're all making a timeline. And then all of us are going, should I wait until after Secret of the Mimic, or should I?
Well, that could throw so many wrenches.
Right, and like, because if it gives us literally any information on William or Henry, pre-1985, that changes so much.
It could change literally every theory in the past 10 years could just go out the window.
Because, like, if the next game was going to be post-Ruin, I wouldn't care about, releasing my timeline. Yeah. A possible earliest game in the franchise, maybe we wait until after that one.
Exactly. And the earliest part of the timeline is the most debated as well. So it's very, don't know about covering it.
And then there's the possibility, I brought this up on a community post, and like the comments were like, don't overthink it. I'm like, I would say assuming anything is overthinking at this point with how little we know about Secret of the Mimic. But there's a possibility that Secret of the Mimic is a flashback styled game where it's like, we're going through this warehouse in present day, but 1979 is the flashbacks. That's the secret. Yeah, that's what we'll learn.
It's kind of like FNAF 3 and FNAF 4, where the mini games take place years before, but the main gameplay takes place in the present, but maybe just swapped or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I hope it's all 1979 or whenever that is to get more information, but I think it's completely possible that it's not actually taking place in 1979. And that's just when the secret happened.
Yeah, there's a very real possibility that it just ends with Cassie taking off the mask again.
Yeah, for real.
And that's a big reveal.
I'm so... Oh, God. Jackie is so interesting. Jackie is so interesting.
I didn't get to play the PAX demo, so I've not seen much of it, but from what I've heard...
and like someone made a pretty good recreation of like he did it and he corroborated stories and he like recreated it. Just seeing that, it's like, what are you?
I have no idea. I'm terrified to see what's gonna happen.
So interested, and I know a lot of people have echoed this. I really hope it's a normal game first with VR worked in after the fact, and not a VR game first with flat mode worked in after the fact.
100,000,000%.
I think the only game that kind of worked being made for VR and then post hoc made flat was Layers of Fear, because you don't really notice it in Layers of Fear. Realistically, the only way I noticed it in Layers of Fear is when you open a cabinet, you have to like manually swing it open. I'm like, oh, this was made for VR. But yeah, the timeline and like where we agree, maybe disagree. I guess, to kick things off, what's your hottest take on the FNAF timeline? What do you think? What do you think your most disagreeable point is?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Not to put you on the spot, but what's going to make the most Twitter users angry?
Anything, right? Anything. Literally
fair.
Anything.
That's fair.
It would have to be like the first death order, though. Surely.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. And that's one of the earliest pressure points of who dies when.
Yeah, exactly. Which
all right, so what do you think the death order is?
My order is Charlie first, Elizabeth second, and Bite last, Crying Chad.
Interesting. When does MCI happen with that?
After all that, 1985.
After all that?
I think all those deaths happened in 1983.
Interesting. I guess my first question would be, why were the fun times built?
I know.
I feel like that question gets begged.
That's a very, very big flaw in it. But
yeah, I wouldn't say it's a flaw. It's just something that would need to be addressed.
Yeah, it's the map in Sister Location that shows Fredbear's Family Diner with Spring Bonnie and Fredbear currently there, attached to the underground part with all the fun times already. To me, that says it's also in 1983 that whole location existed. But I don't have a good answer for why he made the fun times so early. Maybe he saw, because I say Charlie's first, maybe he saw the puppet was acting weird and decided to experiment. Who knows? I have no good answer for that.
I mean, mine is not too dissimilar. You raise a good point I haven't thought about, of the idea that on the Sister Location map, we see the Fredbear and Spring Bonnie connection points. I will push back a little, only in we're seeing that during Sister Location, so I wouldn't say they're necessarily active, but they were installed in that bunker.
Yeah, that's the main issue with it, is because is the map alive, just a screenshot of that time, or is it a live thing and it's not actually Fredbear and Spring Bonnie there? It's hard to tell what the map is telling us.
Fair. I would, at least by the time Sister Location itself, the game is happening, I would wager to bet that it might be a screen that was like, hey, this is what the connections were when they were installed and where they go, whether or not they're actively connected.
Yeah, that's what
that'd be my guess.
To make it
especially now that the week before tells us about these stage charging pads, which kind of go to explain what those connections are on that map.
Yeah, that's the main part of it, is that Fredbear and Spring Bonnie are there on the map because they get transferred to a Freddy's location after, so they shouldn't be there if it's after 1983.
That's a fair point. That is a fair point. I think where I'm at right now is Bite of 83, Charlie, Elizabeth, MCI. I think that's where I'm at. And my thinking for that had been, the Bite has the least amount of prerequisites, so I just tend to put that early.
It makes a lot of sense, yes.
And then seeing the Bite, and then possibly seeing Fredbear react in a strange way, if William wants to then look into that, I could see the fun times as a way to possibly recreate that. And if I can recreate this, I can study it. And then my thinking went into, sure, they are aft in robotics, but they are incredibly advanced. Do we think Henry helped? So my thinking was killing Charlotte as a way, secretly, as a way to manipulate and convince Henry to help. Because now Henry... to help create the fun times. Because, now Henry has skin in the game. Now it's hey, William can put his arm around him and be hey, I know what it's like to lose that. I know it sounds crazy, but, do you think there's a way we can bring them back? All the while, just Grinch smiling,
That does actually make sense, because we don't know how Henry knows everyone's possessed by the end of the story. He just somehow magically knows. So it could be a thing where Afton told him a bit, and they tried working together to do it.
Yeah, and then once Elizabeth dies, Henry's oh, everything goes wrong, and he disappears or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, or there's the theory that William frames Henry for the missing child incident, which I think is a pretty valid theory. It's got some flaws, but I like it.
I like it just because it explains where Henry is for like 40 years.
Exactly, the fact that he just fucks off for like the entire franchise, and then like at the Pizzeria Simulator is like, maybe I should do something about this.
Maybe I should finally do something.
Okay.
It sounds like we both have like our first victims have to do with William discovering how they're possessed and if they're possessed and how that all works. Like after their first death, that seems to be where we both agree that that's when William discovers all of this and then makes the fun times.
Yeah. I think we agree on that.
Elizabeth is second, no matter what. Sorry, Elizabeth. Did he say second? I forgot.
I said no. You're good. I said third. Because mine was that he kills Charlotte to manipulate Henry, and then the fun times are built.
Yes. Okay. So we agree it's Charlie, Elizabeth. It's just the crying child.
Yeah, putting that crying child somewhere.
Yes, somewhere.
We agree that MCI comes last. So there's that.
Yeah, I agree with that heavily.
Because it does seem like okay, fine, I'll do it myself kind of thing.
It definitely does. And with the Into the Pit and all that saying 1985, it seems like that's the year that it happens.
Doubling down on what we've heard in other sources. I think I believe it was FNAF AR where Golden Freddy has 1, 8s, 9s, and 5s around him. Or was that Circus Baby? No, Circus Baby has the sister location numbers around her.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's Circus Baby with the sister location, like the random numbers she said.
Yeah.
Which we still don't have a good explanation for.
We really don't.
I completely forgot about them.
I for a moment, I had a theory that like maybe it's the day, month, year of the missing child incident. Only because like she's kind of the ringmaster for them if you believe Molten MCI.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like there's so many flaws in that, and both 1985 dates we have don't line up with those numbers. So
yeah, exactly.
We still don't really know what that is. It could be as simple as like that's what Scott in his mind thinks the like atomic number for Remnant is. Who knows?
Maybe it could just be as simple as that, honestly. Something as random and just simple as that.
Speaking of like lighthearted, obviously won't make anybody angry disagreements on the timeline, what do you think Burntrap is?
I think you can't say
because I go back and forth depending on the day. I go back and forth.
Yeah, but you can't say this one's not going to get anyone mad. So what's Burntrap?
Right,
which is like the biggest debate.
Not even who, what.
I think Burntrap is going alongside Scott's interview, which changed my perspective on it a lot. I think
I agree.
Is that Burntrap is the remnants of a mask inhibitor or something in Gregory, and he was just going to see random flashes like Cassie did with Helpy, just seeing random appearing in his vision, stuff like that.
You can't see this because my video isn't going through. I'm shaking the camera right now, like in agreement. Like I'm shaking your hand. I agree. I think that's the most logical. Or like even maybe that's just what Glitchtrap looks to someone who's betrayed him. Like it could even be something like that.
It could be. But yeah, I think the claw mark being the same between the Mimic and Burntrap, I don't think that was proof that Burntrap itself existed. I think it was just always the Mimic, and he just never gained that. It's just telling us that the Mimic is in some way Burntrap.
Here's my one pain point that I think I keep getting tripped up on, because I think I agree with you, and I think it's more likely that Burntrap is some sort of hallucinatory effect, either from the occipital nerve chip, from exposure to the Vanny mask, or even exposure to agony. It could be something like that. Yeah. At the same time, if that's true, and William's body is MIA, does that lean to Stitchline games? And if so, I have an issue with that because I don't think Andrew does UCN.
I know.
That's where I get tripped up on.
Yeah. Andrew is just like the one prick that just doesn't move. Personally, though, I think a little more controversial in the controversial opinion is that Andrew and Cassidy, they're both there, I think Andrew just takes over after the Old Man Consequences cutscene, where Old Man Consequences says to what I think is Cassidy, "Hey, go rest, leave the demons to his demons, and those demons are Andrew."
Interesting.
That's
So
just
that would
my
explain
interpretation.
that would explain the Golden Freddy cutscene then.
Yeah, so she is there and she is doing the stuff, but eventually she passes on and Andrew takes over.
I don't hate that.
It's the best of both worlds, kind of real.
Yeah, it is kind. It's like it's a decent compromise. I guess my question for you would be, what is your take then on the Fetch minigame from Into the Pit having Golden Freddy active while Fetch is possessed? Because that fucks me up. Is it nothing?
I personally, I don't think Andrew's in Golden Freddy just at all, and I think he's just in Fetch there.
Well, I agree. I think that's showing, like, if this is, like, something we have to take seriously and it's not just, like, something they threw in, something like that, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
If we're taking this seriously, I think it is telling us that, like, Andrew cannot be in Golden Freddy, right?
Yeah, because he's in Fetch at that time.
But if that's true, and going off of your idea that Old Man Consequences kind of convinces Cassidy to let it go during Ultimate Custom Night, Fetch takes place after, right? Ultimate Custom Night, then he gets pulled out, then he explodes, now Fetch is happening. So now that Ultimate Custom Night is over, Cassidy's back in Golden Freddy? Question mark?
It's annoying because you're completely correct with that. You're completely correct. And I will say I do not have a solid answer for that.
No, that's fine. There's so much in this I don't have an answer for.
I don't remember. Does Fetch, does it ever say when it takes place?
I just did the audiobook for this, like 2 weeks ago. I don't remember a date. I just know that
it would have to be after Ultimate Custom Night, though, because William explodes.
Well, yeah, it has to be after Ultimate Custom Night, but as far as, relative to the Stitchline Stingers, all we know is it's post Man in Room 1280, pre-Stitchline. Or pre-Stitch Wraith. That's all we know. There's a big question mark right there, where, like, a lot of Fazbear fights takes place.
Yeah, that's annoying. But to be fair, that could coincide with my theory that Happiest Day happens after the Stitch Wraith Stingers, because the puppet does appear. So it's possible that Cassidy is also just hanging around waiting for the puppet to finish up and all that stuff.
Hey, that's fair. Because like you said, the puppet is there. The puppet is, at least until the end of that fight, we know confirmed to be there. You could argue, okay, you're the band, not canon, but important, a little crazy. You know what's weird that I just thought about? The puppet doesn't show up in the week before at all.
That is true.
That's strange.
After FNAF 2, we never really know where the puppet goes. It just
because
somehow Henry tracks it down. That's all we really know.
It's implied that it was at FNAF 1, like, in the background, but I guess that could just be I guess those visions would be of the original Freddy's then, and maybe the puppet isn't at FNAF 1 at all.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, you raise a good point.
Yeah, because I kind of took the puppet being in the background somewhere of FNAF 1 for granted. You would think if it was, the week before would have at least given us a hint to that.
Well, yeah, it's something small, like he heard a music box playing or something like that.
Or like mentioning like black and white wires or something.
Yeah.
Like, we get corpses in the vents and we don't get any mention of the puppet.
Yeah, it is weird that we don't know what happens to the puppet after FNAF 2. Just somehow Henry gets it.
Yeah,
we don't know how,
has to capture it.
Gets it. Yeah, he has to go out and capture it, which means that it's just
somewhere.
roaming around. What is it doing? Just roaming the streets?
Because we can assume, like, a lot of the stuff gets auctioned after FNAF 1. That's why Fazbear Frights works. But, like, the puppet was at Fazbear Frights, like that reflection. But it seemingly... But then, like, what happens after FNAF 3? Like, where is it?
Yeah, where does
I
it
guess
go?
I guess it's with everybody else before FNAF 6 hanging out in the sewers somewhere, I guess.
It must be. There's a long time gap that I don't think Scott thought about.
Nope.
How to get from point A to point B.
I've said for the longest time, ideal FNAF game that wouldn't like shake the timeline too much that I would love just for the gameplay of it.
Yeah.
Post sister location, survival horror. You're a kid in a suburban neighborhood. Ennard is lurking around your neighborhood.
They really could do something really good with, like, make him like an urban legend.
Right?
Where he's just random people see him every now and then. It's like a whole thing. There's so much potential with that. I don't know why he's not done anything with that.
He's so fucking cool, and he's in the franchise for 10 minutes. Like,
How is there not like a Fazbear Fright story about that, but there's one about someone getting pregnant with Springtrap?
let's go in the flesh, in the flesh. What other weird points of the timeline that are disagree? Oh, here's a good one. FNAF 4 in general, right? I tend to think that the gameplay of FNAF 4 is the recurring nightmares that Michael Afton has after being put through the testing chambers of FNAF 4.
Okay, interesting.
Which is weird and specific, but I can't find any other way to square away all the weird shit in FNAF 4.
I know, FNAF 4 is very confusing, and I think Sister Location and Didophobia made it even more confusing by trying to make it more clear, if that makes sense.
And then the character encyclopedia came out and said, actually, forget all that.
Exactly. Those bloody guidebooks, man. Scott, please give me the keys. I'll make an accurate. Please. Give me the keys to a guidebook. But no, FNAF 4. What do I think about it? I'm trying to think. I think because the crying child kind of has to be a part of it in some way, right? Because we see the pills, we see the hospital stuff. So in some way, he's inflicting his agony memories, something to Mike somehow.
I agree.
But it's just whether Mike's literally like dreaming of his experiences or dreaming of like, I don't know, his experiences at Freddy's and not the experiment chambers. It's very confusing.
Yeah, because like it links up so well with like FNAF 1, which like we're pretty certain is Michael Afton doing that. So then like that goes back into there. And you raise a good point. Like if it's just the like guilt of what happened to his brother, why are the pills and IV at Michael's bedside?
Yeah, it never really made sense why it's that. Unless the whole thing is meant to be the crying child's room.
Which I think part of it can be leaned on the idea of Alone Together tells us that if a ghost is trying to reach out to you, they can affect your dreams. So like maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, I do think that's part of it. I do think the crying child is in some way haunting Mike, especially because of the logbook as well, where he's just there. Yeah. So in some way, he's infecting Mike's dreams, memories, all that stuff. But
because I do think Alone Together is one of the like most important world building stories we've ever gotten.
Yeah.
Just to have someone like unambiguously sit down and be like, here's how ghost possession works. Like
literally like here's the 5-step guide to
5-step guide. Here's what makes it hard for a spirit to move on. Here's what helps them move on. Yada yada yada. Like
very clear and see. Inside.
Here's a quick one that I think we agree on, but I feel like some people would get upset if we didn't mention it. Speaking of ghosts and possession, give gifts, give life. Is the marionette stuffing the suits?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, thank God. Thank God. Thank you.
I think every other continuity where the puppet doesn't exist shows that William stuffs them either way, just to hide the bodies.
Yeah.
I don't think the puppet somehow like put the kids into the suits.
No, I think it's 100% like a metaphor, right? Like
it's just guiding the spirits, I think, more so, not the bodies, but just guiding the spirits to possess the suits.
Yeah, because the amount of people, every time I bring up like, oh, this is the puppet helping them to possess, I'll get like at least a dozen or two comments just like, actually, it's clearly that the puppet is stuffing the suits. It's like, no. What? No.
Yeah, it just doesn't really click well with me that it's the puppet putting dead bodies into suits instead of just metaphorically. Hey,
I mean, I guess it lends credence to DCI because then it's like, oh, William never hides the bodies. It's like, well,
yeah. I mean, you are right, but there's also the what do you call it? Like I said, the novel trilogy. which says that he did hide the bodies. The puppet doesn't exist.
And the
The bodies
movie.
are hidden. Well, yeah, and the movie as well.
Like literally every other instance. And like it even goes along with like if you think William is doing all of these murders to experiment, it would make sense for him to put them in the animatronics.
Yeah, instead of just leaving them like outside and just hoping something happens.
Yeah. What other weird points of the timeline are there? If you have any that you wanted to talk about, feel free to shout them out. I'm like scanning through like for weird bumps.
Same. Just quickly scanning through my mind. What's like a weird little thing?
Where do you place Sister Location's gameplay? It's a weird one, right?
There's no concrete year. I don't think that's possible to get a concrete year.
I agree. But like in order.
Whereabouts I put it, I think definitely after FNAF 1, just because of Molten MCI, which I believe.
Okay.
And I think Didophobia, it says something like the experiments were abandoned for 10 years by that point, but the fun times are still around, which I think is 10 years after the Springlock incident is when Sister Location takes place. That's just my interpretation of that.
That's not a bad idea. I hadn't considered adding Didophobia to that math equation there. That's a good point.
I may have gotten it wrong, but I think it's 10 years it's been abandoned for, which would make sense to be after William's gone and can't do anything.
Yeah, well, I know he's in there for 10 years. I don't remember if it's specifically stated when he's been abandoned. I'd have to reread it. Yeah, but you are right that Rory was definitely in there for 10 years. So at least 10 years.
Yeah, at least 10 years. And because the fun times are still there. They're all still there.
No, I had not considered adding Didophobia to that math equation. That's very interesting. I agree with you on the order. I think post FNAF 1 makes the most sense. Even if you don't think Follow Me goes into the MCI, which like I believe Molten MCI, but I believe it in a very roundabout way because I think Follow Me failed. I don't think William Afton makes it home. But
interesting.
I think it's the pieces from the MCI that were put on the toys and those toys that were scrapped get melted down, and that's how the MCI gets in there. Regardless, I agree with you. Even if you don't agree that on Molten MCI, the idea of William Afton dying and Michael having to go in for him lends itself to a post FNAF 1 explanation.
Well, yeah, that's also another what do you call it? An issue with it is that Michael does say that William sent him down there. Yeah. So it's like he has to somehow tell him to go down there.
I tend to lean on the idea that's been thrown around a lot of like, it's basically hey, if I don't make it back, do these things. Like here's a checklist.
Like contingency plan type thing.
Yeah, like you can't. My timeline is really mean to Michael Afton because it's kind of Michael Afton can't do anything right. The timeline. Because a lot of my timeline is just like William Afton keeps Michael in the torture chamber, pulls him out. Yeah. Hey, I need you to do something at FNAF 2 for me. Gets fired on the first day. Damn it, back in the chamber with you. So on and so forth. So I could see it being like, look, I don't want you to go and mess with my bunker, but if I die doing what you couldn't, you need to go into the bunker.
Yeah, that would make sense as a kind of plan B, just in case things go wrong.
Yeah, because I don't think William is worried about risking Michael's life. I don't think William cares about any of his kids.
Not at all.
I always have to clarify that whenever I talk into theory, like, oh yeah, and then William is upset because like the ex-child dies. It's like, point of clarification. I don't think he's upset because his child died. I think he's upset because an asset is now out of his reach.
Well, yeah, exactly. Especially if he was experimenting on like the crying child, let's say. If he dies, then he's gonna be like, shit, there's no one else like I could do it.
All this paperwork is for fucking nothing now. Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah. You know what? Fine, you get in the chamber. In you go.
You get in now.
Here's a fun one. Totally out of the blue. Just something that I think that I'm curious what your thoughts are on it. Kind of an extension of Didophobia and FNAF 4 and all of this. Do you think that the FNAF 4 day minigames are all the FNAF 4 testing chambers? In the same way that in Didophobia, he has those daytime moments.
I'm just off the brain, just thinking about that. I think it's a very good idea in retrospect, but I think by the time of FNAF 4, I do not think that was the plan.
Oh, fully agree. I don't think Didophobia was the plan until Didophobia was written.
Yeah, good point.
I don't think Nightmare Gas was in the plan. Maybe by sister location, because there is admittedly a lot of gas tanks, but like still.
Yeah. Not the whole idea of it, I think.
No. Because I was thinking about like lining that up. Because I was thinking about like that lining up with the FNAF 6 fake pizzeria chambers. Like, what if this is literally all just reused? Like, Henry's like, I don't want to build a new thing, but I can use this.
Yeah, to be fair, though, that does then put into question if the crying child really died. Because if it was all an illusion, maybe he didn't actually get bit, and the dominoes all kind of fall in the wrong places.
Now we gotta look for some like 20-year-old dude wearing like much too short shorts and a t-shirt. Like, where's my father and my Fredbear plushie? Oh man, I will say, Didophobia as a story itself, it's one of those FNAF books that you read it and I'm like, I'm not scared, I'm just sad now. This just made me sad. Like, Count the Ways is another one where I'm like, I'm not scared, I'm just upset.
That is true. It's just sad.
You know, speaking of the books, we have actually, I have a couple questions in case we get to them. Unless there was a point on the timeline you wanted to bring up, I have a relevant question.
Sure, go ahead then.
So this one's from Incusis, she, her. Thank you for your question. If you want your questions sent on the podcast, feel free to send them into Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast @gmail.com. It's in the description, copy and paste, because it's a pain to type out. But her question was, I have seen most of the books been mostly talked about with their relation to the game series. But if one were to take the books without the context of the games, which one would you consider to be the best and worst? She asked for a top and bottom 5, but we don't have time to list 10 books each. But what would your best and worst book be? I've been thinking about this, so if you want to think, I can yap.
Book in general or just
in general
or just in general?
Any FNAF book. Because for me, best was the Silver Eye. No, if you have an answer, I'd love to hear it.
I think I kind of Silver Eyes, yeah. Either that or the week before for the best. I just like the week before, just in general. There's no real reason. I just like it.
No, that's fair.
I don't know about my least favorite though. Honestly, it would have to be one of the obscure Frights or Tales stories. There was one I remember reading and going, "This just sucks," but I forgot which one it was.
I think I agree with you on best. Like almost exactly. Where like it was the Silver Eyes, because that was kind of the most like conclusive story we had. Yeah. And I think the week before overtook it. It's just such a fun story. It's so well written. It's got like the perfect bits of comedy, so it's not just like a blood and sadness fest. And Ralph is really likable, so it's just a good time.
Yeah, it's really good. I really like the Silver Eyes.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Return to the Pit and Escape the Pizzaplex, if this is the quality we are to expect.
Well, yeah, exactly. With the VIP as well, that was pretty good. I like.
Yeah, VIP was great. It was just short, so like VIP was great.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I, as a kid, loved Choose Your Own Adventure novels. So like just being able to relive that has been so fun.
They're really good books. I hope he makes more than just the 4 currently.
Me too. I would take a whole series of these, especially if they're gonna be lore-heavy retellings of all of the major games. That'd be really helpful.
I don't know why Scott should know that the way to make a bunch of money with the books is just have like a full book that is just a story from the lore. $1 million right there, Scott. Just make a story like the week before. It's so easy.
Make the week before for every Scott Games FNAF game, and my life is yours.
Literally, you'd make $1 million.
The new era too, but like especially the Scott Games era. There's a lot of missing detail.
Even if we just got like sorry.
No, you're good.
I was gonna say, even if we just just got a story on just the William Afton family before everything.
Yeah.
Like before.
Give me an interactive novel of those like daytime minigames of FNAF 4.
Yeah, exactly. Something we've already seen, so it wouldn't ruin too much, but it would just be like we'd get a little more information. That's just
some actual
so
characterization of any of the Aftons.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love to have a canon personality for any of the main characters of this series, please.
I would love that as well. Instead of us just theorizing.
I can't think of I similarly I don't have like a off-rip worst book. I'm tempted to say the Silver Eyes graphic novel.
Oh yeah, the graphic novels they're just automatically kind of.
I think like the Fourth Closet and like I think like the Twisted Ones. And I do love the Fourth Closet graphic novel. I think they do a really good job in that one. But like the Silver Eye specifically has so much of the story left to the wayside, and also I'm no artist, but I don't love the art style of the Silver Eyes graphic novel.
It does seem kind of rushed, like kind of last minute ish.
Which, if I remember correctly, you like. And I don't even remember which. Was it one of the like shitty people artists that did the Silver? I don't remember, to be honest with you.
So.
I think
so.
it was.
If I remember
but
correctly.
Like, even if it wasn't, I remember whoever it was saying like, "Oh yeah, I was not given sufficient time to make this."
Yeah. You can definitely tell that time was an issue with that one.
Yeah, I mean, luckily they seem to have learned from that, because just even immediately after with the Twisted Ones and Fourth Closet, but especially with the Fazbear Frights graphic novels we've gotten, which have all been pretty solid. Tales in the Pizzaplex. Did we get the first one yet? It's coming soon if we haven't.
Yeah, I remember it's coming soon. I don't know if we've gotten it. I don't know if it's out yet.
My Nightmare. Here's a fun one. Maybe to close out the conversation on the books. A most frightening short story, because for me, by far, I'm immediately forgetting the name of it. I'm gonna have to Google to double check. I believe it's Cleithrophobia. The one with Cleithrophobia with, is this the right one? Maybe not. Body build.
I'm trying to remember. There's so many short stories. You could be talking about like 3 of the phobias in there.
Cleithrophobia is yes, that's the one with Fitness Ballora.
Oh yeah, okay. I can understand that. Yeah,
because like I already have a fear. Like one of my biggest fears are those like cave divers who go in too deep and get stuck. That's one of my biggest fears. Which leans onto that story. I don't know if you're familiar with. I don't know if you're familiar with Junji Ito's work. He's a manga writer, horror one.
I'm not though, so.
But he wrote a story of the enigma of Amigara Fault. If you haven't read it, incredibly chilling story that like terrifies me to this day. I won't spoil it for you, but I highly recommend it if you can stomach it. I'll send you just like the kind of like there's the premise panel for the manga where essentially an earthquake happens and those silhouettes appear on a rock and they go on for like you can't see the other end. They just go on. And people on the news start recognizing like, wait, that's my exact silhouette. And people like it's one of those like psychological horrors of like people are just compelled to like it was made for me. I have to go in it.
Yeah.
And then there's like the whole like the horror of it, the main characters having nightmares. It's so that story messes with me.
From the premise, it sounds good.
But like that cave diving, being stuck upside down, all of that combined into one story where Ballora forces you down a tube. I cannot read that without like wincing every second page.
That is very fair, honestly.
But is there a short story that comes to mind of like scariest or like most gives you the most heebie-jeebies or whatever?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm not. This is a hard question for me because I'm not really like a scared person. Like,
and admittedly, like, not a lot of them are scary.
Be fine. Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but like, I don't know. The scariest. I don't know. That's a tough one.
That's totally valid. I guess a more accessible question might be a favorite short story of yours.
Favorite short story. It's probably recency bias, but I like
Fair.
Into the Pit. I just think it's just a cool.
It's a
time
fun
travel.
story.
I just like that sort of concept of stuff.
Yeah.
To Be Beautiful, I also like as well. I like To Be Beautiful.
To Be Beautiful is similarly to Count the Ways for me of like, I'm not scared, but I am sad.
Yeah, it's very just sad. All the stories are basically like these people going through horrible things, and when they're ready to, start making themselves better and into a better version of themselves, they just die. Like,
Yeah.
it's just
Oh well.
the whole thing. They just die. Too late.
Because like it is the recurring theme in like every Scott story, game or book of like karma coming to bite you, but way more than you deserve.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. Yeah. It's literally just tenfold.
it's like, oh, you were mean to your brother once? Get stabbed and lose your eye and be dismembered while conscious, while Foxy sings in your brain. Like,
literally. It's just karma, but like a million times.
yeah. We're running long here. I don't want to hold you too much. I know you're taking your vacation. This is typically where I say, like, do you have anything coming up? But I guess just promote the Supreme Guide. I mean,
well, yeah, I just want people to go watch the Supreme Guide, honestly. It's going to be a slow grower. I think it's just going to grow in the background. I don't think it's going to be like a massive hit straight away. But I highly recommend giving it a watch. It's just it's basically just a whole resource. Like, it's literally just a Wikipedia, basically.
Yeah. No, it's super helpful. And I've already begun going through my asset folder and going through the assets you've collected with the drive link. And like, oh, that's a much better version of this thing that I have. Like, just going. So expect a lot of pings from me when I put that chunk of text in every description moving forward.
That's the main reason I wanted to do it, which I'm glad I was able to get that working, was having so many like just assets and resources for other people to just use.
I just downloaded the whole folder day one and just went through the folder in my files. I'm like, let me just go through it this way. It did download in 2 chunks, which I've never seen before.
Oh, really?
When you download a folder on Drive, it zips it for you, and it zipped it into 2 different zip folders.
That's interesting, yeah.
And it's also not alphabetical, which is crazy. It's just like it was 2 like mismatched chunks of the folder.
That's so weird.
It's very strange. I mean, it made it easier to like go through half at a time, to go through and like, oh, I don't need this, I don't need this. Oh, I definitely need this.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And I totally agree with you. It's definitely the kind of video where it's not I don't think it would be expected to per se on release blow up. It's an evergreen video.
Yeah, exactly. It will last forever, basically.
Exactly. It's up there with, and I think it's like on the surface immediately more thorough and useful than my previous go-to resource of, I believe it's like FNAFresources.com or whatever it was called. That like one website where somebody just like collected a bunch of like assets. It's immediately but much more thorough.
Yeah, and more up to date as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So now I only have 2 bookmarks for additional research / asset pages. Oh, I guess 3, right? Because I've got the wiki, I've got now this bookmarked, and I've got a underscores FNAF AR email site bookmarked as well.
Yeah, same here. That's very helpful.
No, but yeah, you're totally right. That it's I think this video is more than anything a service, and it is a testament to the research and skill that you were able to put behind that, of how well it came out. So my hat my hat is off to you. It was something that was by far worth. If it came out 3 years from now, it would have been worth the wait.
Yeah. I'm really happy with it, and I'm usually very skeptical with my own videos. Like I usually don't really like them. I think there's more I could do, but this one I think it was just I'm happy with it. I can just put it out, and I'm fine with it.
And as you should be, and you should rest a bit and come back when you're ready.
I'm coming back in like 2 weeks. It's not that big of a break.
Good. Look, I'm of two minds. One, I want you to take as much time as you need to rest and recover. And two, December's coming up. You want that good ad rev. You better get back here quickly.
That's the main thought too. Don't worry.
Yep. That's why I literally on my last podcast when I was talking about making the timeline, I was like, look, either I get it done in December or it's coming out next December. I'm like, if I'm being honest.
Completely.
But no, it's always a pleasure having you on. The people, if you want to go follow this, top link will be the Supreme Guide, and you can find the channel from there in the description. And if I remember, the card, but I probably won't remember. But until next time, this has been the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where the pizza abilities are endless. We hope to enjoy your future patronage. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.